Hello YouTube, Fresh Mika here to give you guys my second installment of my Disney princess perspectives, and today on what appears to be everyone's favorite princess Cinderella. Now, as most people might not know, Cinderella is actually Walt Disney's favorite fairy tale. The reason behind this is because of the fact that Walt Disney himself could actually relate the most to Cinderella, which means to me it might probably be his favorite movie he's ever made as well. That right there I can't confirm, but that's what it appears to me. Now, as I said in my Snow White perspective, it seems to me that Cinderella is, of course, the most popular. Maybe because the tale is such a classic. Just like I said with Snow White, actually all the princess stories are classics, but Cinderella is, to me, probably out of all the Disney princess tales, has probably been the most redone story out of all of the tales. You know, the story of the Glass Slipper has been turned into a popular Broadway musical. Actually, most of the stories has. And has, of course, been retold in stories many, many times. Now, here is time for me to explain to you guys the tale of Cinderella. Now, most of these tales you guys have probably heard plenty of times, but let me start off the backstory for Princess Cinderella. Now, it all began when Cinderella was just a little girl who lived with her father. Her mother passed away when she was young, so like most parents do, he remarried her evil stepmother. Now, mind you, she put on a facade that she wasn't mean and cruel, but really was quite mean and cruel. Now, she had two daughters, Anastasia and Drizella. Now, of course, they actually were the Tremaines. I wonder if this is Cinderella's actual last name, but I'm getting a little sidetracked. Now, after being married to Cinderella's father, he, of course, died, leaving Cinderella in the care of Lady Tremaine, her evil stepmother, and her evil, aka ugly stepsisters, Anastasia and Drizella. Now, of course, Cinderella was made, of course, the maid of the family, because they were jealous of her beauty. And she was often kept locked away, of course, because of her beauty, i.e., a little bit of a Snow White kind of style there. Now, of course, they all began to get older, and of course, this also meant that soon the young prince of the kingdom would soon begin looking for a wife. So, then news of a ball came to play. And it was at this ball that the prince's family, the king and queen, were expecting him to find a wife. All the fairest ladies in the land became invited. And of course, Lady Tremaine decided to take this as the opportunity to hopefully whisk her young daughters away to get not only love, but to get riches as well. Cinderella, hearing of the news, assumes she's invited to the ball as well. So with help from her animal friends, Jack and Gus, they soon began to create her a dress. Now, as the moment of the ball began to arrive, the stepsisters, Anastasia and Drizella, were ready to go, of course asking Cinderella to help them with their outfits. Now, as soon as they were getting ready to depart, Cinderella comes down in her pretty pink dress, as helped created by her animal friends. The sisters, as well as the stepmother, get a raveling jealousy, and the sisters rip apart her dress. As Cinderella is sitting there outside crying because they ruined her dress, jealousy, who better? As soon as she's there sobbing, here comes the fairy godmother, here to make Cinderella's dreams come true. With a little bit of magic and a little bit of the bibbidi bobbidi boo, Cinderella gets a gorgeous silver dress, and her animal friends become human, and she of course turns a pumpkin into a carriage, and then Cinderella is ready to be whisked away to the ball. While there, Cinderella and Prince Charming fall madly in love. But of course, Cinderella must remember that the spell ends at midnight, and she must return home by then. It is then that she is falling in love with her prince that the clock strikes 12. And Cinderella knows that this is her key to leave. But the prince doesn't want her to leave. So as she's running, the prince is running behind her, telling her to stop. It is there in which she drops one of her glass slippers and continues to run. Because as she is running, her beautiful gown is becoming rags. Her beautiful carriage is becoming a pumpkin. And the beautiful horses and horsemen are turning back into her animal friends. It is then that she runs back to the house. But of course, everyone is curious. Who is this beautiful blonde girl in a beautiful silver gown? Well, that, my friends, is Cinderella. Now, as soon as Cinderella returns home, she thanks her fairy godmother for a wonderful evening and returns back to her quarters. Now, the prince, who has fallen in love with the darling Cinderella, along with his father the king, and of course the Grand Duke, make it in all their power to look for every maiden in the kingdom until he can find the precious Cinderella. Now, as soon as the Duke begins looking through every girl in the kingdom, it is soon time for him to arrive into the Tremaine home. After realizing that there's a good chance her daughters might be married to the prince, Lady Tremaine gets the girls and they begin to get excited. Cinderella, realizing this is her chance to be with the prince, of course hums the song from the night of dance. Lady Tremaine figures out that Cinderella is in fact the silver-gowned beauty, and of course locks her away. Now, as she locks Cinderella, it is up to Jock and Gus to steal the keys and in fact break Cinderella free. Now, as the Duke is putting on the slipper on the feet of the Tremaine sisters, of course they have giant feet, so there's no way it can work for them. So they keep begging and begging him to keep trying again and again. It is until the fact when the mice actually can get the key that they do in fact break Cinderella free. After all of the trouble with the Tremaine sisters, the Duke almost leaves until Cinderella shows him the other glass slipper. This of course is after many problems with the cat Lucifer also trying to stop the mice from breaking her free. After placing the slipper on Cinderella's foot, the Duke determines that she is the beautifully gowned maiden from the dance. And of course, Cinderella and Prince Charming live happily ever after. Just like Snow White, it is a classic tale of love and romance, hardships and troubles. And yes, like I stated in Snow White's video, it is your typical Disney princess formula. Have a beautiful, beautiful appearance, like Cinderella's a beautiful girl. Have a wonderful singing voice, Cinderella does. Go through troubles and hardships, of course being, forced to be a maid in your own house, which is what Cinderella goes through. And also win your Prince Charming, which she did. Oh, of course, her best friends are animals, i.e. Jock and Gus. So that also fits the princess formula. Now, Cinderella to me is a great princess. She to me, as we all know, is the one in the center if you look at the Disney princess lineup, the official photos. She is in the center. Now, I have several photos with Merida in it, but it's not the official lineup where you have all of the princesses lined up together. And even when Merida does get in there, she'll probably end up somewhere on the side, like what Rapunzel did when she was first introduced. Cinderella, though, will always be in the middle. And the question is, why? Why is Cinderella always in the middle? Well, folks, that is because of her popularity. Cinderella to me is a very marketable princess. She has the beautiful blonde hair and the gorgeous blue eyes, and I guess your typical American girl look. Although, Americans look all kinds of different ways. Look at the princess lineup. But she to me is your typical American, so of course she's at the center. And also because it, of course, is Walt Disney's favorite tale and the one he can relate the most to before he passed. Cinderella is an amazing fairy tale. A one that everyone has heard of, translated into different legends and interpreted in different ways. I do love the Cinderella story, and I actually really like Cinderella as a princess. Yes, she's the first three princesses, and I will admit this: Snow, Cindy, and Beauty, or although her real name. Yes, they kind of did not have too much really to do in their own, because they had help from others to get what they wanted really in the end. But that didn't mean that their fairy tales did not come true. Now, in all honesty, all of the Disney princess stories have deep backstories from the original fairy tales. But that doesn't mean that they kind of can't be a little bit more simplistic than their original notions. Now, Cinderella was the first princess out of the originals. If you look at the top 10, she of course has spawned a lot of sequels, and it's not just her, it's Ariel as well as Belle and Jasmine, and of course if you count the additional sequel belonging to Pocahontas and Mulan. Cinderella's stories are continuing sequels. Like you have the second one, Dreams Come True, which is just a compilation of different fairy tales. Her sister Anastasia actually finds true love. Hard to think one of the evil, ugly Tremaine sisters can actually find it, but she does. And then, of course, Cinderella gets to go out and go on her little adventure, and then Jock gets to know what it's like to be human. Although Jock, to me, him staying human was pretty cool to me. Although he went back to being a mouse, but I kind of in a way wish he would have stayed human. I kind of wish Gus would have been a human too, because that would have been a great adventure. The third Cinderella sequel, which is A Twist in Time, is one in which I wish that people would actually do for all of the princesses, and not just them, but for some of the heroines as well, in which the villains get an upper hand and get to change it the way they want to. Because as you know, Lady Tremaine turns the fairy godmother into stone and makes Anastasia. Now I'm going to get into this for a moment too when I get done explaining the story. And basically lets the slipper fit her foot, and the prince, I guess, ends up getting brainwashed into marrying Anastasia. And of course it's up to Cinderella to try to reverse it and get her happily ever after back. I guess turning her from your typical prissy princess into a bad butt-kicking heroine to fit with the last 6 princesses, because that's the way that they are. And then, of course, the thing that I was going to get at is, how come it's Anastasia? If you guys were going in a distinct order, then Anastasia already has her prince. She married the baker. At least, I guess that's what you guys kind of forgot that she did. So really, it's supposed to be Tremaine and Drusilla. But then in a way I can see why that is, because you guys went back in the past. I don't know, it's just confusing to me. That they should have just made that one, I guess, what happened years later, and just leaving it between Tremaine and Drusilla, because Drusilla's the only one that's still with the evil stepmother because of the fact that Anastasia has left and found romance. And I'm sorry, here I'm rumbling off. Now, Cinderella, like I said, great princess, beautiful, typical American princess is really what she is. And of course, her merchandise sells very, very well. I see little girls always have the little Cinderella dresses on. She's quite popular. But to add a quick fact to this video, After researching the Cinderella film even more, did you guys know that Prince Charming was actually supposed to be the first prince with even more personality than Prince Philip of the film The Sleeping Beauty? Now, from what I read, Walt Disney intentionally planned the prince to have more of a character development than just being your typical gorgeous prince looking for his beautiful princess. One of the scenes I read that strictly came to me and made me go, wow, was the fact that the prince was actually when he got reintroduced to his princess, Cinderella. As he was supposed to be surprised and a little bit shocked at the fact that she really wasn't a princess, but more like a little maid girl, a little servant girl. And it said, but his love for her was so strong that he didn't care that she wasn't a princess at all. He didn't care at the fact that he was marrying a servant girl at all. That to me was very, very amazing because it showed the strong depth of their love for each other. Like, he didn't care if she was a servant girl. And I think they took the fact that into the 1990 adaptation film Rodgers and Hammerstein's Cinderella, starring the late Whitney Houston and the singer Brandy. I think they kind of took that and put that in there as well, because the prince re-meeting her, which I love that. That was a great scene to me. And to add, I really do love the many adaptations of the Cinderella story. Like, my favorite adaptations is Rodgers and Hammerstein's Cinderella. Is that to me, like I said, it was one of the many specials I would watch every time it aired on TV. In fact, after Whitney Houston died, I went and actually rewatched the scene where she was singing the song Impossible, where that basically, the transformation scene, where she's turning, Cinderella into, the beautiful dressed girl for the ball. I listened to that song right after, because it was just amazing to me. It is stuff like that, to me, that makes Cinderella such an even grander tale. The adaptations as well bring the classic in greater, because they're basically reinforcing the tale. The original Cinderella, which is the original title of Cinderella, and just making it greater, whether it's the Broadway adaptation by Rodgers and Hammerstein or the Disney produced version. Cinderella will always be grand. To me, always a grand film. I'm sitting here talking about everything else, guys, but let me get to more on Cinderella herself. Cinderella was forced, as we all know, as I discussed, to be a maid girl because her poor father wanted her to have a mom in her life. And I guess you never know whether or not that mom will be there caring for you or she'll hate you. It's the same like with the first princess, Disney, Snow White. Her father died, and all she really had was her the queen. But the queen hated her because of jealousy. The same thing that Lady Tremaine saw in Cinderella, as well as her stepsisters. There really was no love for Cinderella at all. It was just hate and jealousy. And of course, that made her character what it was. Like, she was going to get through anything. Even though she did have help from her fairy godmother. And kind of it continued in that way in the third movie, although she got turned into stone. Now, I'm going to sit here right now and do this quick reasoning as well on, of course, the change in Cinderella's look. Now, the one thing a lot of people had complaints about, when the original Cinderella design, got out on the dolls and the lineup itself, the original one, people were kind of wondering why in the world they didn't stick to her silver gown design. And that is something else I wondered as well. It's like, why are we not sticking to Cindy's original gown design? Like, why is it more blue? Now, when I researched online, they said it was a silvery blue anyway, but my eyes kind of didn't see blue in it. I just saw like a glittery shade in it. But everything to me besides her dress actually matched her in the film. And now with Cinderella's new design, because some people like the redesigns and some people do not, I love the redesign for Cinderella. I love the curly hair. I love the fact that even though her dress is still blue, it's like a darker blue. Yeah, it doesn't match what she wore in the film, but I can see them changing it up. In fact, they changed up a lot of their outfits, so they're not supposed to be the same. And of course, like I stated earlier, she is of course still in the center. Now, of course, when Merida gets put on the official lineup, where it's going to be all 11 of them, I know Cinderella's still going to be in the middle. It's just what Disney does. But in all honesty, yeah, I love her redesign. It's prettier to me. The makeup is more, I guess, it's more modern aged. Her makeup is. And to add in a final perspective, Cinderella is a classic film as old as time. The tale has been told in many wonderful musicals, including one of my favorite, Rodgers and Hammerstein's. Cinderella is a classic princess. She's the second princess for Disney in general, and Cinderella is just amazing. I know I gave Snow White a lot of praise as well, but I actually am just going to give praise to all of the princesses. They are amazing. They are good, and there's a reason why everybody has their favorite. Yes, I did go on to a point where I was kind of sad that Snow White didn't get as much praise, because if you look at it, Cinderella to me is the most popular. She's usually number one on a lot of people's list. And the reasons are, yes, she does fit the Disney princess formula, and in a way, yes, I really see why she was Walt's favorite and Walt Disney could relate so much to her tale. So for Cinderella and for everyone in Cinderella's kingdom, you guys are popular. You guys are the quintessential Disney princess and the quintessential Disney prince and princess. So I'm going to end this video here. And it's not as long as Snow, and most of the princesses videos will not really be as long. The only ones who will be long are the ones who actually will require a lot of discussion if they have like anything controversial about them, which means probably the longest princess videos I will do will probably belong to Tiana and Pocahontas respectively, because they had a lot of controversy behind their princess stories. So you guys can kind of expect pretty long ones with those two.